listening to the Seven Rivers Student Ministry podcast. We believe that all students are lovable through a relationship with Jesus. If you'd like to know more about our ministry, you can visit us at www.sevenrivers.org/students. This is the place where we talk about the spilt milk of parenting teenagers. Woohoo! I am Mikey Puckett.
And I'm Sarah Harris.
I kind of forgot who I was for a second.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And we believe all students are
lovable through a relationship with Jesus.
Full send, always.
We're killing
nailing that. I think that's my
So
favorite part of the whole podcast.
Yeah,
is right there.
just saying that together.
I think our listeners, that's their favorite part as
It's
well.
gotta be. They just stopped listening because
Yeah.
their favorite part's over.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, on our stat sheet, it says like 20 seconds of listen time.
4,000 people
Hey,
listen
if
for
that's
20
the-
seconds.
That's the one thing they take away, though.
I'm not mad about
I'm
it.
not.
If we can just drill that in,
That's our motto.
the world would be different.
Well, we also believe that parenting teenagers is incredibly difficult and
Yeah.
hard. It can be lonely, it can be exhausting, and full of shame.
Yeah.
The whole cycle of trying harder, failing, that results in shame, man. Thank goodness that we have a Savior, because I need
Praise the
Jesus
Lord.
every day. I need Jesus today.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Oh, I was today, literally, I was going to this thing. It's called Presbytery, which is just a fancy way
Really?
of saying a bunch of
a bunch of pastors
pastors getting together to
Hanging
talk
out.
about things.
voting on
It's
things.
kind of
and
boring.
things.
But what comes with that is a lot of insecurity, because you see all your laborers or
Yeah.
people in other churches, and it's always like, oh, wow, look how successful they are. Look how well they're doing, and then you're always thinking to yourself, like, I am terrible.
I don't have anything
I'm
together.
not good at this. And then literally I was like, I need help. I need I need someone to help me, and because I had terrible thoughts running through my head. I was like picking everyone apart,
Oh
being
my
super
goodness.
critical, being super mean. And so I called my friend Skylar, and he was like, "Man, I love you." And I was like, "Man, I needed to hear that, because I just don't believe I'm lovable right now."
Dude,
Like,
it's hard.
how can God love me? And it's really because of Jesus. So and same thing for you as parents. If you're listening to this, just let that be the foundation, is that you're just loved. Jesus adores you.
Mhm.
Our Father in heaven adores you and loves you. So let that just be a place you start. And now you can end the podcast.
Yeah.
You can just hit stop and
Yeah.
not listen anymore, because
Yeah. Move on to the next one where we say the
next
same
time
thing.
where
at the
we say the
beginning.
same thing. I think they're catching on.
Yeah, there's a theme here.
Well, part of this whole podcasting thing too has brought that out in me as well. I'm like, I really like my voice. Every
Yeah.
time we keep going back and editing, I'm like, can we make that sound like a little deeper, a little more bass?
I
you
was
know,
just thinking today you sounded just like Adam Young. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
That's a compliment, folks.
guys, if you don't know
That's
who
a
Adam
big
Young
time.
is, that's a
Yeah,
compliment.
go to his podcast, the
Yeah.
places we find ourselves. That's kind of what we're going for a little
Yeah,
bit here.
yeah.
We're not copying him.
We're not copying him. This is like student ministry.
Oh yeah, student ministry. Yeah, parent ministry.
Parent
Yeah.
ministry.
His is like real counseling.
Real-
Ours is
Ours is whatever this is.
Yeah, so well, I'm glad you guys are joining us and you're with us. This is something that we wanted to do for you guys, and this is stuff that we're really passionate about. We really care about. We love you. We love your kids. We love your families. So, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this episode.
Let's go.
Let's send it.
I'm pumped.
Send it.
Woo!
Sarah, you ready for this?
Yeah, oh gosh.
Asante sana, squash banana, wee nugu,
Oh.
wee ni apana. Ooh.
Mikey, what the heck are you singing? What is
I'm
that?
singing a song.
Well, I was yeah.
It's from the one and only Lion King.
It's got to be the Broadway production.
It is.
Oh,
It is.
so good.
Guys, we like the Lion King, as you can tell. This is
This is episode like 14 that we've talked
yeah,
about.
and we're talking about the Lion King. I think it's actually really good, though. I think it has just so many connections for us, and so many connections for like going through story and working through story and working through your family of origin and childhood. But we're going to try something new with you guys.
Oh.
It's already a new podcast, and we're already trying things. We're going to get in the arena.
Honestly,
okay?
Mikey, this is every parent that's listening that's familiar with us is like, there's nothing new about you trying something new right now.
Right. That's what we want people.
We love that.
That's our culture.
We keep them
here.
on their toes.
So we're going to try something new. Essentially, we're going to read the script to you of one of the scenes in the Broadway play
gosh.
that is so good about stories, and it's about remembering who you are. And it's a conversation between Simba and a monkey called Rafiki and another monkey called Tiki. And yeah, so we're just gonna kind of let's do it.
Let's
okay?
go. I hope
So,
that there's a
Sarah,
recruiter listening.
Yeah. If you guys think this is
The
really
Broadway.
good, send this to someone you know that's in theater, and
Yeah.
and let's get us a showing.
I
So
think it's great.
if people were here to see us actually acting this scene out, we're not only speaking it, we're actually acting.
We
too,
are
so.
we are taking on the characters.
Okay, so I got my Rafiki voice. Okay, right. I'm getting into Rafiki mode. Okay, all right, here we go. Okay. Asante sana, squash banana, wee noo me apana.
Enough already. What's that supposed to mean anyway?
It means you are a baboon and I'm not.
I think you're a little confused.
Wrong. We're not the ones confused. You don't even know who you are.
Oh, and I suppose you know.
Sure, we do. You're Mufasa's boy.
You knew my father?
Correction, I know your father.
I hate to tell you this, but he died a long time ago.
Nope, wrong again. He's alive and I'll show him to you. You follow Rafiki. We know the way. Come on now. Look down there in the water.
That's not my father. That's just my reflection.
No, look harder. You see, he lives inside of you.
Simba? Father? Simba, you have forgotten me. No! How could I? You have forgotten who you are, and so have forgotten me. Look inside yourself, Simba. You are more than what you have become. You must take your place in the circle of life. How can I go back? I'm not who I used to be. Remember who you are. You are my son and the one true king. No, please, don't leave me. Remember. Father, remember. Don't leave me. Remember.
What are you going to do now?
I'm not sure, but going back means I'll have to face my past. I've been running from it for so long.
That was
Ow.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was great.
Wow, Sarah.
I
I'm blown away, speechless.
I think that Broadway's gonna hire us as a duo though. Like we
Remember.
Father,
Remember. Father. That was good.
I was really
I was
yeah,
in
I
it.
almost teared up. I mean, I know what Mufasa and Simba feel like now.
So that's one of, I mean, that's an epic and incredible scene right there. And I don't know if you're picking up on some of the themes that we're essentially talking about here, but you have, Rafiki essentially pressing into Simba and saying, remember who you are. And then you have Mufasa from, spiritual Mufasa saying, remember who you are. And Simba realizing that maybe he needs to go back into his family of origin, go back to the Pride Lands, go back into his story. And so that is what we're asking you to do as parents, is to go back to your childhood, to remember who you are. And for so many of us, I mean, that's really scary.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Simba was scared.
Simba was scared. He said, I'm not sure, but going back means I have to face my past. I've been running from it for so long. I mean, he's literally echoing the words that Scar said to him, run away, Simba, and never return. He's continuing out that story of his family of origin, having to face his failure, having to face his shame. And I think when I look back as a, little Mikey, I am scared to do that. I'm scared to go back and to think about myself as a child, myself as a kid, and to go back into some of the parts where I've been really hurt or really wounded.
Mm.
And if you haven't gotten the chance, if you listen to the first episode, we do an ACE test called Adverse Childhood Experiences, where we ask you 10 questions to kind of see if you've had an experience where there's probably some trauma or something that has happened to you that was significant in your childhood that kind of wounded you. And so if you even said yes to one of those questions, you have somewhere where you maybe need to return to that little version of yourself, to that child, and to go back to your past and go back to your story and remember who you are. I don't know. What do you think about that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Throwing you on the spot.
Yeah, it sounds pretty scary.
So
Yeah, I kind of agree that when you think about even some of the things that aren't as traumatic as maybe other people's trauma. We've talked about this in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, but just revisiting some of the hurt and the pain that you've experienced before can be really scary because it brings up a lot of the insecurity that we have now that we're living out in our stories now. And then not only do you face the stuff that you face when you were a child, but you have to face the ways that you've hurt people because of that pain. So,
yeah, I think the only way for one person to decide to go back into their past, into their childhood, into their pain, into their trauma, the only way possible is actually through Jesus. And so that's one of the things that is so beautiful about Christianity. Is Christianity, a lot of times I think there's a way that we can use Jesus as a way to whitewash things, as to just kind of cover it over. And in a sense, that's true. But then we don't particularize the deep parts in our stories that are really affecting us. So it's I struggle with this, so I'm just going to call it one of the 7 sins and confess it, and then just say, Lord, forgive me, and confess it. And yes, he does forgive you. But when you go back into the details, that's when you start going back and weeding out all of that, pulling out all that pain and pulling out all that hurt. And I think a lot of times we like to whitewash because we're not allowing our hearts to connect to exactly what Jesus did for you. And so really we're inviting our parents in a sense to go back to being kids and to think about that again, to return back to their origins. And that I think is going to be really significant in helping you parent, because if you go back to your childhood as a parent and remember yourself as a kid, I believe and I know that you will encounter Jesus in your story and in your childhood memories. You have pain and hurt and trauma that you've been running away from, and you're not sure how to even face your past. You've been running for so long, and so we are asking you to actually take steps towards that by maybe talking to a friend, taking that ACE test and bringing up one of those questions and saying, hey, this is something that keeps bothering me, or that has hurt me, or has wounded me, has been traumatic in my life, and sharing that with that person and seeing what happens when 2 people sit in that space and share that pain together. Someone who wasn't even there actually feels what you felt when you were there. That's powerful. And that's where I think you can encounter Jesus, and that's only possible because of Jesus, for you to have the courage to go back into your past.
Yeah, knowing that Jesus has ultimately justified everything now is gives you the freedom to go back, because it reminds me of stories of a mom whose son has been murdered or kidnapped or what, and they can't quite move on from the trauma of losing a child until the person who did it is in jail, or the person who did it has been found, or the mystery has been solved. And I think that that is so much of our relationship with Jesus, is when we go back into our pain and our trauma from childhood, because we've seen that it has been justified through Jesus, we can experience it, and we can move forward from it once we've gone back to remember what happened and to see the justice that was served by Jesus himself.
Yeah. People who go back into their past don't go back. They only go back because they believe healing can be found. They go back because they have hope. They know the end game. They know what happens in the end. Jesus wins. Jesus makes all things new. He redeems it. Right now, we're in the already but not yet. Right now, we're in the in-between, and it's not redeemed, and it's not fixed, and it's not perfect. But because we have that hope in Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, we know that we can go back into our past and seek out that healing and seek out our childhood being renewed and redeemed, and our lives as adults being renewed and redeemed, and our parenting being renewed and redeemed. It's vulnerability. And the reason why I think a big roadblock for Americans and and especially American parents, especially me, and wanting to go back into my story and history is I don't believe in the healing or the hope. I'm actually, in some ways, it's like if I go back into my past, into my history, and I find the pain and the hurt, I'm admitting to my failure. I'm admitting that I don't have it figured out. I'm admitting that there's shame here. I'm admitting that I'm broken. I'm admitting that I need Jesus. And so that's the crux of the gospel, is saying, hey, duh, of course. So go back and get into it. But I think another thing, too, that stands in the way is I'm afraid that if I go back into my childhood, if I go back to little Mikey, I'm afraid I might never recover. I might never be able to come back from that. And I'm scared of that. I think maybe some of you who are listening are maybe scared of that. And I totally can relate to that feeling. Like, if I go back to those feelings and to those moments, will I make it out? And so this kind of like brings me to something that we've learned as a student ministry team through Adam Young. We mentioned, I think we mentioned him earlier. Maybe we didn't. But Adam Young is a counselor. I think he's in Orlando, but he runs a podcast called The Places We Find Ourselves. And he offers a ton of helpful tools in thinking about this stuff in his, I think it's like episode like 25 or something in his podcast, and it's about healing, and he breaks down healing part 1, 2, and 3. And he talks about this idea that with the Jesus story, with his crucifixion, you have Friday, which is his crucifixion, Saturday, he's in the grave, and Sunday, he rises from the dead. We here on planet Earth, you and I in our stories, we fully understand the concept of crucifixion and graves and people being buried. We experience death all the time in our lives. And so we fully understand that concept and get that. Like, that's really something to grasp, especially in our own stories. We have places, especially with the ACE score, where you have died. Your little self has experienced death. You have experienced death, even now. But we know the ending, which is the resurrection. And sometimes we do this thing where which Adam Young would call popping out. We skip over the death and the crucifixion. We forget the pain. We forget the death. We forget the dying that's required, and then we jump straight to the resurrection. It's like, so like, for instance, like if I came up to you and said, man, I'm having a really bad day, and you're like, oh, what happened? Oh, like, let's say I have a dog. I don't have a dog, but my dog died. I'm really sad. And then Sarah goes, well, you don't need to worry about that. You'll see your dog. All dogs go to heaven. You know what I mean? You're completely skipping. That's a different question. You're completely skipping, my pain. You're missing me. You're missing my story in that situation. So Adam Young calls it, Saturday. The disciples, when Jesus died and went into the grave, they did not know. Even though Jesus foreshadowed it, even though the Word of God speaks of it, they sat in that moment mourning the fact that they lost their friend. They lost Jesus. They weren't sitting around going, okay, you can't wait till Sunday. They thought this was it. This was over. What they had spent their life doing with Jesus was meaningless. And I think when we encounter pain and hurt, we encounter that feeling of, does my life matter? Do I matter? Am I lovable? Am I valuable? How does this make any sense in the end? And I say that's a very gospel, very Christian feeling to feel and experience. And I don't think if you feel that you lack faith. I think it's actually you're coming to the cross. I think that's part of that. I don't know. You look like you have thoughts. Do you have any thoughts there?
No, just listening.
Oh, you're
just remembering. Yeah, it's a scary place to be. It's a scary place to go into the valley and not know that Sunday's coming, or if Sunday's coming.
Yeah, it's really cool. He kind of calls it the U-curve. You have crucifixion at the top, then at the bottom in the valley you have Saturday, which is the day in the grave, and then up top you have resurrection. And our stories have all kinds of ups and downs, and we have valleys. But what we like to do when we look back on our stories, we like to just take an airplane over all of it. Like, we just go 3,000 feet above, like, look, there's where I failed a class. Boom, there's where I, didn't make the football team. Keep flying over at 3,000 miles. But what Jesus invites us to do is says, actually get down on the ground with me, because Jesus lives on earth. He lived on earth.
Mm-hmm.
He says, by him coming to earth, he says, get down on the ground with me.
Mm-hmm.
Live your life with me. Live your life, and don't hold anything back from me. Share with me. So really what we're saying is invite Jesus into this story work. Invite Jesus in going back into your childhood. And as you do that, you're going to experience the crucifixion with him in your story. You're going to experience the pain. You're going to experience the hurt. But know that he's on the cross. He's on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
Know that he's been there. He's experienced that. And then you're going to experience the valley of the grave.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like, we call it like desert seasons as Christians. Our Christian is like, I'm in the wilderness right now. I'm in the desert. It's really dry. My faith is dry. And we would call that, like, you know, like, I don't know. Like, it's just like our Christianese kind of describes our moments like that. And I just wanted to remind you that actually in those seasons, Jesus is in the grave in there. And so as you go back to the places where you died, sit there and rest there with Jesus and with maybe somebody else, maybe a professional counselor or a friend that deserves to hear it, and then wait. And waiting implies something. I love this concept of waiting, where if you wait, what are you waiting for? Right? When I say wait, it already requires faith and hope. You wait in something that you're hoping to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're waiting for resurrection. You and I are waiting for resurrection in our stories. And so we go back to our childhood parts, and maybe we do get stuck, and maybe we do sit in the valley, but we wait for a miracle to happen. We wait for the Holy Spirit to move. We wait for the Rafiki and Simba moment where we see, you know, our Father in our reflection, in our stories. We see his hands all over it, his fingerprints all over it. And then at the end of the day, we realize, oh, this is why I have to go back. And this is why now I can go forward into the rest of my life and lead my life from this place instead of ignoring it or forgetting about it or being Hakuna Matata, means no worries. Like, no, things have happened to you that you should worry about. Things have happened to you that you should deal with, that you should talk about, that really are significant. And this is what we tell our kids all the time is your pain matters. Your story matters. Even if you would, you know, a lot of times when I talk about my story, I say, oh, this is just a little thing.
Popping up, man.
Oh, it's just, yeah, that's a pop-up. Like, that's literally me just trying to jump to resurrection. Oh, this is just a little thing. Like, even when we were talking about, you know, bringing our little kid self into the room, you know, my character, you know, my little kid self would be wearing a navy blue Auburn t-shirt because I love the Auburn Tigers, blue gym shorts, navy blue gym shorts, so I was like a blueberry, and then an Auburn hat, probably a navy blue with, like, you know, an orange piece, you know, bill hat, and all blue. I loved Auburn with glasses and probably a hole in the armpit. Just because I love that shirt. I had a literally Auburn shirt, had holes in armpits, and I didn't care. I wore it all the time as my little self.
I'm sure your mom loved that.
So bringing that person in and having to bring that little kid in is a moment where, I don't know, it's scary. It's difficult. And I think when we go back to our little kid self and bring them in, we have to face that moment. And then what the Lord is saying is, hey, I'm there. I was there with you. I saw you in the room when you were hurting. I saw you in the locker room when you were hurting. I saw you when you thought no one was there. I was there. And maybe that doesn't come, you know, right away. Maybe that, you know, comes at a different, maybe that comes different. Like, maybe that never comes in this life. I don't know.
So if, say there's a parent listening today, and they have some things in their mind, some stories that maybe have been influential, have informed the way that they've parented, lived life, been married, whatever, treated their spouses, treated their friends. They have these thoughts. They're remembering a childhood trauma. What do you say they do? Like, what's the first thing that we do? Do I go find a friend? Do I pray about it for 6 months? What's the first thing I do?
Yeah, I would say if you're listening to this and you're like, man, this is resonating with me. One, go watch The Lion King. I'm just kidding.
But really.
No, I think wherever you are, I would say stop right now, wherever you are, and invite Jesus into it. And maybe you're sitting there and you're actually like, I can't remember anything from my childhood. Well, there's a reason why you can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that reason is, but you're blocking some stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And invite Jesus into it. And invite him to speak to you and say, Father, is there anything in my story, in my childhood, that I'm still holding on to, I don't realize, that that I'm missing, that I'm forgetting? And invite him into that process. And then from there, I think the Lord will give you those memories that he wants you to remember, and he'll give you those names who he wants you to talk to. And then that's where you will move forward. And like always, we have a counseling program here. So,
Right.
and if it's something really significant, if you're really like, I don't have any friends, I'm not around anyone, I don't have community, well, counselor's a great place to start. But also, that's it. Let me plug it real quick. 7rivers.org/counseling. Okay. Great people there. We love them. We go see them. Okay. And we need them. But also you can come and reach out to us. And you can email us at srsm@7rivers.org, or you can reach out to a pastor here at our church. That's our jobs. We love it when people come into our offices and say, most of the time they come in and say, you guys are doing this and this wrong, and are super angry at us. And that's okay. We appreciate that. And we learn from that. But we would love for people to come in and say, I'm at the end of myself. I'm broken. And that's the freedom in the gospel. That's why the church is here. And that's why we need to worship together and we need to be together. And then from there, there's probably, with a counselor and with some pastoral care, I think you'd be able to get some more practical steps. But it's really bringing it into the light, first with Jesus and then with others.
Sure.
So, wow, great question, Sarah. It wasn't even thinking along those lines. So that was awesome. That's why we're a team.
That's why we're a team.
So that's kind of where we wanted to go today. I hope, I don't know. I kind of feel like I just monologued a lot, so I'm sorry.
No. I think it's good stuff.
Sarah's just looking at me and
I'm like just shaking my
nodding
head,
her
yeah.
head, and she's like
Smiling.
giving me uh-huhs, and you know that's like amens, in PCA circles, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go, and then all of a sudden I look over, and I'm like, what? I just talked for
7 minutes.
hour. I'm just kidding.
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt here.
No, thanks. But yeah, well, we love you guys, and we hope that this is helping you to remember who you are, and who you are matters, and who you are is lovable with a relationship with Jesus. So we love you guys.
Yeah. Let's go heal. Thank you for being here today for the Spilt Milk podcast. We are so thankful that you tuned in. We would love for you to like and subscribe our podcast on whatever podcast platform you listen on. Also, if you loved this content, we would love for you to share this with your friends. We think this is valuable content and we want it to get out there. Also, you can give us a 5-star review. That would be super helpful. It gets it to people who it may not have gotten to otherwise. If you want to follow us anywhere else, you can follow us on Instagram at 7 Rivers Student Ministry. You can also follow us on Facebook at 7 Rivers Student Ministry. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, advice on how to podcast, you can email us at srsm@7rivers.org. Thanks for tuning in today.